The action of our new story begins right on the battlefield. There's some man who is fully clothed in white robes, walking on this field and passing near some horn. It turns out that in this battle was defeated Ides. She is a demon from the highest demonic tribe of the world of demons. The girl looks at this man and, emphasizing that she lost, asks if now awaits her death. It also becomes clear that the rock that passed by the man is a rock that belongs to the girl. The man who was walking earlier on the battlefield looks like he is an angel. He asks the girl why she hesitated at the end. While on, the man can see drops of someone's blood. And we learn that his name is Ferdinand. He is the god of war. She claims she's put up with 120,000 years of what's been going on, and now she's here. I turn to the god of war. She asks if he blames her for not dragging him with her, while Ferdinand of Habsburg extends his hand to the girl. At the same time, some magic is activated in his palm. Seeing the glow of magic appearing in the guy's palm, the demon realizes that this really is most likely the end. We learn that she is willing to cut her flesh and blood just to kill him, because in the past 120,000 years, she has done many bad things. The girl has reached the highest position in the demon clan. Through all this, the girl has become incredibly strong, but she still can't understand why she remembers such a scene. Even though she's on the verge of death, she doesn't think it's a reason to go crazy. During all these thoughts, the demon lies bloody on the ground, while the guy bends over her a bit, puts his palm right in front of the girl. She wonders to him why the hell he's doing this. But Ferdinand, who is the god of war, tells the girl that he's giving her another chance. The girl doesn't really know what he's talking about, and asks him if he's mocking her now. Guy notices that the demon has been too focused on getting revenge on him all her life. So now he's willing to give her a chance to redeem herself and regain her powers. The girl doesn't understand what the guy is talking about again, but looking at her hand, she sees some strange magic enveloping her. She looks a little angry at the interference from God. The girl is even more angry and asks God how he dared to do such a thing to her. But God says that if she does good deeds in the human world for 1 year, she will be able to regain all her powers. But according to him, the girl must remember one important condition. This condition is the girl's total goodness, because if she attacks someone or doesn't do good deeds, she will die a painful death, he said. Ferdinand emphasizes that if the girl succeeds in his task, she can be reborn with holy powers. He gently touches the girl's face and emphasizes that he will look forward to the day when she will return to him. Ides gets even more nervous about the god of war touching her face. She calls him a goddamn man and immediately disappears somewhere. The guy who holds a lock of the girl's hair in his hands declares that he is confident that the girl will be able to complete his task and return with divine powers, and he calls her Sally. The story moves to an empire called Lucerne. Some guy asks a priest how long they will wait. It is not clear what they are waiting for, but I think soon we will be told all the details. In this case, the priest emphasizes that the oracle emphasizes that she should appear soon. Apparently, it is in this empire and our protagonist must move to purify herself from her sins. According to the priest, they should just wait. He also asks his followers with surprise about the faith. Seeing how they do not want to wait, Long asks if they have faith at all. We learn that this man is the only high priest of the capital of the empire. His name is Lennox Clapton. The priest's followers are very surprised by his question. They look as exhausted as possible, and one of them, having gathered courage, reminds the high priest that he hasn't slept for a month. Another man, who is also incredibly exhausted, emphasizes that perhaps His Eminence has misunderstood the oracle's message, and they are all torturing themselves for nothing. The high priest himself suddenly hears the guy's words. He turns to the guy and asks if he has any questions for him. The guy is very frightened that the high priest is paying attention to him, and says that he has no questions, of course. According to the high priest, His Imperial Majesty is also very interested in what is about to happen, and he asks the boy to be careful what he says. The priest, with some sort of staff in his hands, tells his followers that they must now repeat the hymn they sang yesterday, with all of the priest's followers looking a little surprised that they have to repeat the hymn again. The priest himself notices the surprised faces of his followers. He does not like the current situation very much. and he does not ask them what is going on with their facial expressions. The priest asks them not to tell him that they can no longer sing. One of the people who are also here tells the priest that this is not so, and pointing his finger somewhere asks the high priest to look in the direction he is pointing. The high priest turns to the fountain behind him and sees a girl emerge from it. We realize that this girl is the demon that was defeated by the god of war. The girl looks very sexy, and as if she is not even wet, she does not seem angry at all, and even on the contrary seems to be an incredibly good person. She is wearing a very beautiful dress, with an incredible cut in the chest area. The girl looks a little confused to see such a huge number of people together. Her appearance. One of the guys who are kneeling tries to say something, but the high priest is trying to figure out if she is a saint. The girl does not look at them at all. She looks at her hand and wonders what is the matter, for she feels that her body has become much weaker than it was before, though it was obvious because she was deprived of strength. Unlike the demon, the high priest seems very pleased that the girl has appeared. He declares that at last the Holy Virgin has appeared. Apparently she is the one the men have been expecting for about a month. The demon tried to take a step back because she saw people, but suddenly stumbled on the edge of the fountain, which was right behind her, and began to fall directly into the water from which she climbed out. The people who have gathered to meet the demon, who they believe is a saint, are incredibly frightened that the girl begins to fall. Even the priest himself shows fear on his face and shouts that the girl is falling down. Suddenly, the priest turns to his followers and tells them to be quiet. Then he approaches the girl and touches her throat a little to see if she is alive or not. But after he has done so, the priest turns to his men and says that he is sure the girl will be all right. Yet she lies unconscious on earth. Suddenly, the demon starts to come to her senses and makes some strange sounds. She opens her eyes a little and sees a priest in front of her who holds the girl's head. She is surprised to see him and wonders what they are. The girl's first thoughts are that these people are spirits. Looking directly at the priest, the demon tells them that if they're going to kill her, they should do it elegantly, with the girl calling them fucking bitches, her words having an incredible effect on all the people who had gathered. They look at the girl in bewilderment. Even the high priest himself doesn't understand what she is talking about. He looks at her and asks himself what is happening to the girl. They begin to look at the girl in even more detail. While the high priest thinks that it is impossible, in his opinion, something is wrong, because the Holy Virgin cannot swear. While they are watching and still a little shocked at the behavior of the Holy Virgin, we learn that His Majesty the Emperor is waiting for news. His Majesty the Emperor thanks his informant for such a quick report. He is very happy that God himself sent the legendary Saint Maiden to their empire. In the future, we learn that these lands contain an abundance of minerals, fertile land, and an abundance of talented people all in one place, the Empire of Lucerne. It turns out that in the distant past, Lucerne was only a small country, and the reason for its prosperity was the blessing of the god of war Ferdinand, whom we saw at the beginning of the story. It is said that the emperor was sent by God himself. Also the god of war Ferdinand sent to the land of the empire Lucerne, a holy maiden who is able to work miracles, and thanks to whom the empire will further prosper even faster. It turns out that the Holy Virgin was given by God to help the people of the empire of Lucerne to live in peace and tranquility, and to make the empire prosper even more. And it is now for the first time that God sent a holy maiden to earth, and all the people of the empire eagerly awaited her coming. The holy maiden was taken to the palace to the emperor personally. He looks at the girl meaningfully and realizes that she is a real beauty. And I can also notice that the emperor himself does not look ugly, because he is also quite handsome. The high priest, looking surprised at the emperor's praise, emphasizes that he did not expect to hear the emperor praise the lady. The emperor looks at the high priest and wonders why he didn't expect it. The emperor emphasizes that he speaks as if he were a monster with no sense of beauty. The high priest says that's not true, and at this point we learn that the emperor of the Lucerne Empire is 26 years old this year, and his name is Raiden Sigarion. From the words of the priest we learn that their emperor, though incredibly handsome, is a very strange person who is still a great mystery to each of them. The emperor changes the topic of conversation and asks the priest if he understood correctly that the girl appeared in the divine garden. The priest says that this is exactly what happened, and he personally saw with his own eyes how the girl came out of the divine fountain. The emperor realizes that the woman came out of the water. He emphasizes that if it were not for the witnesses, the emperor would not have believed in such a story, because it seems completely unrealistic. The priest, in turn, tells the emperor that he has no doubts about the case. In his opinion, she was sent to them by Ferdinand, the god of war, so that their empire may continue to prosper. The emperor is much more skeptical than the priest. He states that his words are utter nonsense. Obviously, the emperor's words affect the priest very much. The priest looks around and thinks that thank God no one heard their conversation, but the emperor begins to argue in favor of his point of view, touching the girl's hair. He asks if it is not foolish of God to send such a nice lady to earth. The high priest, again looking rather perturbed by the emperor's words, he purposely coughs to draw some attention to himself and claims that this is not the case at all. He thinks that although their ruler is hard to understand, looking at him now, the high priest realizes that the emperor is behaving very unnaturally. We learn that the emperor had never shown any interest in the clergy. Before this incident, he had not been interested in God or blessing, but suddenly, for all of them, the emperor became interested in the appearance of the Holy Virgin. The high priest feels as if the emperor is so interested in the girl because he sees her as his bride. But the priest refuses to believe this, because he does not want to believe that the emperor looks at the girl as his future bride. He has another question. His question is why. If the emperor does not regard the holy maiden as his bride, he is interested in her and praises her beauty in every possible way. The priest realizes that the mind of this man cannot understand and blames himself for his thoughts. Lennox is distracted from his thoughts by the strange sounds that the girl has started to make. He looks at her with his mouth open and tells the emperor that he thinks the girl is finally starting to wake up. After the demon opened her eyes and stood up a little on the bed, the emperor personally approaches her and asks the girl if she has finally woken up. He continues to stare at her meaningfully and wait for an answer. The girl immediately becomes embittered, and calling the emperor Ferdinand, gets out of bed and tries to pounce on him, asking how he could ever do that to her. Lennox and the two guards who are also in the room are surprised by this behavior on the part of the Holy Virgin. They cannot understand what is happening, but suddenly, instead of attacking the emperor with fists, the girl starts hugging him, surprising everyone in the room, and even Lennox can't believe his eyes. The girl herself also does not understand what is happening, because she wanted to do not that, which was understandable immediately after she woke up. Also, true surprise we can see on the face of the girl. But even though she doesn't know what she's doing, the demon still continues to hug the emperor. While she wonders what she's doing and why she hugged the emperor, Ides tries to say something to the emperor, but she can't. The demon is incredibly shocked by this and wonders why she can't offend him. The emperor turns to the priest and asks him if their Holy Virgin is mute. The priest, who is still incredibly surprised, says that it seems the Holy Virgin wants to say something to the emperor, but she can't do it. Suddenly, in the girl's mind appears a picture of the god of war Ferdinand, who asks the girl if she can at least a day not to swear. At the same moment, the Holy Virgin guesses that he put a spell on her so that she could not say a bad word to anyone, while the girl calls him a bastard and believes that this is very low on his part. The emperor, in turn, states that the Holy Virgin at the first meeting climbs with embraces. In his opinion, she is unscrupulous, but at the same time, the emperor himself does not stop embracing the Holy Maiden. During their embrace, looking directly into the eyes of the Holy Maiden, the emperor asks her what she wants to tell him. Seeing that the girl does not answer him, the emperor puts the Holy Maiden back on the bed. Ides looks very angry, and again calling the emperor Ferdinand, tries to say something to him, but suddenly she notices something odd. Looking at the emperor, she does not understand why Ferdinand's eyes have turned blue and what has become of his lips, for she knows that for the last century he has never smiled. In her opinion, this fellow is incapable of any emotion. The priest, who has a leaf and a quill in his hand, tells the girl that she is a saint and tells the girl to take advantage of it. Furious Ides looks at the priest and thinks that she doesn't need it, but she didn't say a word. and then the priest tells the girl he should introduce himself first. He tells her his name is Lennox Clapton, and he is the high priest of the Lucerne Empire. Lennox also does not forget to introduce the Holy Maiden and the Emperor. Pointing to him, she tells him that this man is their Emperor, and his name is Raiden. The girl is very much surprised by the words she heard. She realizes that since the man who is in front of her is the Emperor, she really is in the world of men. She finally realizes that, simply put, this man just looks like Ferdinand. The girl does not understand why the Emperor and the God of War are so much alike. On the face of the girl can be seen that she is clearly confused because she did not expect such a turn of events. The girl's confusion is noticed by Lennox himself. He slightly approached the girl and, bowing to her, emphasized what should be. The girl is a little confused and does not understand what is happening. The high priest begins to tell the girl that, according to the oracle in the divine garden, Ferdinand himself was to send them a holy maiden that would help the prosperity of their empire. According to him, everyone was very much looking forward to her appearance. Thanks to the words of Lennox, the situation finally becomes clear for the main character. She realizes that if you believe the words of the priest, she is a holy maiden. This fact pisses her off very much, because her gut does not correspond to a holy man. The protagonist begins to think about everything that is happening. She remembers how Ferdinand told her at the moment of their last meeting that he would give the girl one more chance. She realizes that Ferdinand actually sent her to the human world to do good deeds, and even made her a saint maiden to do so. In her opinion, because of this act, Ferdinand is an even bigger bastard than she thought. The girl gets very angry. It is noticed by the Emperor and Lennox. They do not understand why she has such a reaction, but the girl thinks that she has been through everything: betrayal, death of loved ones, murder. But to turn her into a human being, as well as a saint, it is already an extreme. Suddenly, Lennox wonders at Saint Virgin could she introduce herself to them, for he is very interested if the girl has a name. He looks quite suave and calm in talking to the girl. In response to his question, the Holy Virgin just starts screaming. Obviously, she's still not happy that Ferdinand sent her to Earth. And as a Holy Virgin, suddenly the girl gets very upset because she can't even let off steam. In her opinion, it's some kind of mockery. At the same time, the surprised Emperor asks the equally surprised Lennox what's wrong with the girl. But in response, he hears that the priest himself has no idea. The main character thinks that she needs to get out of here and do it as soon as possible. According to her, after she returns, she will tear out his heart and feed it to the Cerberians, dear friends. And if you do not know who the Cerberians are, these are creatures from Greek mythology that guarded the entrance to the underworld. They looked like evil dogs with a tail and mane of snakes. Suddenly some magic starts to appear on the girl's hand and she feels some pain. The people around her are also very much surprised by what they see, but the girl looks more closely at her hand and realizes it's a seal. She remembers what Ferdinand said the last time they met, when he sent her here. Then Ferdinand told the girl to remember that if she attacks anyone or doesn't do good deeds, she will die a painful death. The girl is very angry about all these circumstances. She decides that once she can get out of the human world and meet Ferdinand, he won't live after their meeting. The protagonist reflects on the fact that Ferdinand sent her to the human world, and in doing so made her promise that if she survived here, she would be allowed to kill him. The girl realizes that Ferdinand has always kept his promises, and she thinks of the moment when Ferdinand told her that he would keep a close eye on the girl and her actions. She realizes that if she is to believe what Ferdinand says, she needs to stay in this world for exactly 1 year, and then she will finally finish the bastard off once and for all. At the same time, Lennox, who is still near the girl, is very worried about her well-being. He asks her what's going on with her, and also if something hurts, he asks her to tell them what hurts, and they will solve it right away. The Emperor, who also sees that the girl is suffering, unlike Lennox, instead of asking where it hurts, decides to call a physician immediately. The girl says something about good deeds, but the priest doesn't understand what she's talking about. So he looks at the Emperor and asks him, "What does the Holy Virgin say?" But the girl clenches her hand into a fist, thinking only that she needs to do good deeds to survive and avenge all her humiliations. She is very determined and is going to follow her plan. Although Ides claims she wants to help people, but she also thinks that she's very annoyed that she has to play by the God of War's nasty rules. The action moves forward sometime, where some obese man, stroking his beard, declares that he wanted to meet the Emperor, and is not interested in why he was brought to some wench. At this time, behind his back are two of his subjects, who tell him in his ear that the Emperor just wants to placate them. The second asks his master not to fall for the beauty of the girl, because in his opinion it is an obvious trap. The Grand Priest Lennox, very much annoyed by this man's disrespect, he asks that he show respect, because according to him, it is they who have the honor of being the first to see the face of the Holy Virgin. He asks that they be grateful for this opportunity. The men who wanted to meet the Emperor are a little surprised and wonder for a moment about everything that is going on. After a short brainstorm, they start laughing very loudly. Obviously, they don't believe that the Holy Virgin herself is in front of them. Lennox, in turn, is very annoyed by their behavior and doesn't understand how they can allow themselves to do such things. But the chief among men, declaring that if this woman is a Holy Virgin, he must be God, is obviously just mocking Lennox's words. Lennox does not understand why only the Emperor has summoned these men, who still continue to mock his words and the claim that the Holy Virgin is before them. But the Emperor said that educating the ignorant is a good thing, which is just like the Holy Virgin. Obviously, he knew it would happen that way, and just wanted to teach the ignorant a lesson. Lennox thinks about the fact that he certainly knew that the Emperor does not believe in divine powers, but he could not have expected that he would start to mock the Holy Virgin. In his opinion, his act is already a real blasphemy. Suddenly, the Holy Virgin falls to the floor. Lennox is very much disturbed by this incident, and immediately stands beside her and asks the girl if she is all right. The people who were summoned by the Emperor still continue to mock the Holy Virgin. They emphasize that she can barely stand on her feet, so they do not believe that the real Holy Virgin is in front of them. Lennox asks the men to stop bullying the girl. He does not understand how they dare to communicate with the deity. The guy is obviously very angry and not satisfied with the actions of men. The priest tells the holy maiden that he will take her to the infirmary, for he does not intend to tolerate such boorish treatment of their holy maiden by these people. But Edith herself is unhappy with the behavior of these people, and she's very nervous, because she's been mocked for a long time. The girl thinks that as soon as she gets out of this damn world, the first thing she's gonna do is kill the scum, because in the girl's opinion no mortal dares to mock her. She recalls that even in the demon world in which she lived before, everyone bowed before her greatness. Edith is still kneeling on the floor. She thinks about making these pathetic people worship her, and then the girl starts to raise her hand. The ignoramuses still continue to mock the girl. Seeing that she doesn't answer them, they ask Lennox if this woman is also mute. Suddenly, the girl, who is still on the floor, points her finger at the chief among the ignoramuses and thinks that she will make them bow down before her greatness, at which time some strange magic begins to appear around her, and people are very much surprised at what they now see. Ides does not understand why the magic did not work. After all, she wants to heal this miserable worm. Suddenly, the protagonist realizes that Ferdinand also sealed her powers. She is very angry about it and thinks that she just hates the god of war. The people she pointed her finger at continue to mock the girl. One of them, seeing that she has extended her hand, asks her what's going on, and again mocks her, saying that maybe he should gild her hand. Watching the people who continue to mock her, the protagonist thinks about the fact that she was almost killed by her worst enemy, and instead of dying, he sent her to Earth, while sealing her powers and making her the weakest creature she knows. By weakest creature, the girl means a man. But she's even more annoyed that, on top of everything she's going through right now and being made fun of by some uncouth animal, she's still angry at everything that's going on. The thought creeps into the girl's head that Ferdinand would rather Ferdinand had killed her on the battlefield than send her to the human world, where she would suffer such humiliation. The man who mocked the protagonist gets up from his chair and, taking a few steps towards the priest, tells him to admit that there is no Holy Virgin. According to him, the clergy once again fooling people by making ordinary people look like idiots and making up different nonsense. He tells the priest that he will no longer participate in this buffoonery. but the girl who looked at the man turns on some of her magical powers again. And the man and his subjects are very much surprised to see this. And then the insolent man who has been mocking the girl gets down on one knee before her and, calling her saint, asks the girl to tell him her name. The protagonist is incredibly surprised at this sudden turn of events, because before, the man had just been bullying her for a long time, and now he's gotten down on one knee right in front of her. The man who is still on one knee starts to blush, and says that now it is not so important for him to know the girl's name, and he asks her permission to confess something. And the rough man blushes very much, saying that, suddenly, to the surprise of everyone else, the man declares that he fell in love with the girl at first sight. His words surprised even the protagonist herself, who could not have expected it in any way. She wonders what's going on, and she's very angry at his words. The girl doesn't understand what the hell this man is talking about. At this time, she clenches her hand into a fist. Suddenly, she looks at her hands and realizes that something strange is happening, because the pain that was piercing her whole body suddenly disappeared. She has a lot of questions about it, because she still cannot fully understand what is happening. One of the man's subjects asks him what he is talking about, and the other, calling him brother, asks him what is going on with him, their words having no effect on the Lord, and he is still sitting on one knee in front of the girl, marveling at how beautiful she is. He says he can't take his eyes off her lovely face. He starts calling the girl a saint like everyone else, and one of the people who was also in the room asks the man to wake up. None of the people around him can have any effect on him. And still being fascinated by the girl, he falls on his back and starts laughing loudly. One of his subjects comes up to the man, and behind his back emphasizes that he told him not to fall for the beauty of this girl, because according to him, they came here to make a lot of money. According to the man, they just needed to get the information. I send it to the right person. He is very disappointed that the plan was ruined because his brother was fascinated by the beauty of the girl. Lennox, who has also listened in on their plan, is looking very indignant at the men. Obviously, he is nervous about their words. And not only was he unhappy with their behavior before, apparently now they have gone over the edge. The high priest immediately orders the guards to take these heretics. Now, the guards begin to follow Lennox's orders and are about to capture these men. One of them realizes that this will turn out very badly for them. The protagonist at this point continues to look at her hands and is still surprised that her pain has disappeared. But one of the men declares that if it wasn't for this girl, everything would have gone according to plan. I wouldn't have made much money. He looks at the girl with an angry look, and Eads answers him in the same way. In a friend on once again and uses his magic that enveloped the whole body of the man, he began to wonder what kind of strange feeling he is experiencing now. He has a feeling that just for one moment he was able to know the beauty of the world. Apparently all this happens because of the magic of the girl, and after he knew the beauty of the world, the man begins to look at the main character as well as his master, and realizes how beautiful she is. Lennox and Ides are looking at this man and do not understand why he has changed so dramatically in his opinion. The girl apparently still does not realize that all this is because of her magic, which has such an effect on people. The man, as well as his master, kneels before the Holy Virgin and begins to thank her for bestowing upon him her divine blessing. He loudly declares that he swears that from this day on he will be a faithful follower of the Holy Virgin for the rest of his life. But then his master rises up and, pushing the man away, tells him to shut up, because it is he who will glorify the name of the Holy Virgin. The third of the brothers, who is still unaffected by the girl's magic, claims that his two brothers have gone mad. According to him, the girl bewitched them and is a bloody witch. According to him, she is no saint. Immediately, the man grabs the dagger he's had with him all this time, and screaming for her to die, tries to pounce on the holy maiden to kill her. The guards are watching, and one asks the other if he should intervene and stop the man, and the other says he should really do it. Suddenly, a guard intervenes. He pushes the man with his shoulder, and because he did not expect the sudden intervention of the guards, the man immediately loses his balance and falls to the ground. A man lying on the floor is very annoyed with what is happening. He looks directly at the protagonist and tells her that she is a bloody devil, and because of her, two of his brothers have succumbed to witchcraft. The protagonist also looks at him. Because their gazes met, the girl's magic worked on him, and lying still on the floor, the man also declares that he has learned how beautiful this world is. IDs becomes even more annoyed by what is happening, because she burns them with her hateful gaze, and they, instead of being afraid of the girl, only fall more in love with her. The protagonist once again curses Ferdinand because of whom she found herself in this world, where no one is afraid of her, and vice versa. All love, realizing that this will last a year, the girl grabs her head. After some time, the emperor who was in his room, someone knocked on the door. The emperor allowed the knocker to enter. It is clear that he is expecting news about those men. Lennox, who knocked on the emperor's door, tells His Highness that thanks to the powers that the Holy Virgin has, the visitors to the palace have realized their sinfulness and have sworn allegiance to the protagonist. The emperor is surprised by this response, since the emperor did not expect these uncouth bastards to be restrained by the powers of the Holy Virgin. He declares this case to be a very curious one. Apparently, the emperor intends to find out how it happened. Further, we learn that Ides is the strongest demon of the underworld. She possesses 2 horns and 3 pairs of black wings. It is these attributes that proved her superiority over the other inhabitants of the underworld. Everyone who at least once saw the protagonist in battle swore allegiance to her and asked to become her loyal subject, so everyone was afraid of her power. However, this is all in the past, because now the greatest and strongest demon of the underworld has become an ordinary mortal. Especially for our protagonist, set a table where she tastes shrimp. While the girl was having lunch, she started looking at some painting that was hanging on the wall. Lennox, too, noticed it, and asked if the girl was really interested in this painting. He does not yet understand why it is so, but we know that it depicts the god of war Ferdinand, who sent the girl to Earth. Lennox immediately informs the girl that this painting depicts the god of war Ferdinand at the moment of victory over the forces of evil. According to the priest, the girl has excellent taste in painting. The protagonist, who is still dining, is unimpressed by his words, and even more a little offended. But the priest continues to speak. He emphasizes that, as I expected of the Holy Virgin, she immediately recognized her god. But the protagonist does not even pay attention to the words of the priest. She only wondered, since when Ferdinand defeated the forces of evil, because she does not recall such a moment. And to all other, she is very much surprised that after she arrived on Earth, she was very hungry. She was served a good meal. According to the girl, it is probably because of her status as a saint. But to be honest, the girl admits she's not really worried about food right now. She's more worried about the emperor, who looks just like Ferdinand. And he wonders what happened to the gentleman who visited the palace and met the sainted maiden in person. Someone from outside informs the emperor that it appears that these people were tasked to infiltrate the imperial palace and force more information about the emperor. According to the person who communicates with the emperor, it is considered treason. Based on the laws of the empire, that's why they went to jail, and to the great surprise of that person, they surrendered voluntarily. We learn how the arrest of these people took place. After they learned that they would be imprisoned, they looked very happy. The main one of them agreed to go to prison, because if that is the wish of the Holy Virgin, he agrees to everything. And the other 2 subjects, they say that in prison they think over all their mistakes and repent of their sins. But they ask the Holy Virgin at least sometimes to show their eyes so that they glorify her holy face. It turns out that all this time the emperor was communicating with the high priest. It is he who tells about what is happening to the emperor. Next to him at this time is the Holy Virgin. And the emperor looks a little surprised and wonders if they have all succumbed to the spell of the Holy Virgin, to which he receives a positive answer. But the high priest says that their Holy Virgin has a unique gift. He says people only have to look at her for 3 seconds, and then they feel a rush of bliss and love. Ides herself wonders what her strange ability is. She thinks it's very suspicious, and she's sick of all the praise. According to the high priest, the Holy Virgin gives her parishioners the love of God. He admires this ability of the girl, and thinks it is a marvelous ability. The emperor, in turn, does not look as enthusiastic as the high priest. He analyzed all the words that were said to him, and decided to ask Lennox how he got this information. But Lennox says he studied the records of previous high priests, and they all described this ability as a divine gift from the god of war himself, Ferdinand. The emperor is a little surprised at this answer from the high priest. He does not understand how they could describe what they have not seen, because he knows that these old men have never seen the face of God. Lennox in turn justifies himself by saying that in any case the authenticity of all those records he read was confirmed by the Holy Virgin herself. In his opinion, this is sufficient proof that the previous priests were right. The emperor decides to ask the high priest if anything else has been written about the powers of the Holy Maiden in the records that have been read by the priest. He says that there is not much information to know about the subject, because no one with the power of a god has ever entered their lands, at least not until this day. The emperor, who is not as inspired as the high priest, remarks that are able in these to deceive the feeling of the people, making them loyal pawns for the rest of their lives, sounds like demonic charms. The high priest, who is still very happy about the arrival of the Holy Virgin, tells his emperor that he is wrong and that things are not as he thinks. According to Lennox, it is a gift that allows people who have never known God's love to experience His grace for themselves, and he believes this power has no evil intent and is only necessary to make people happy. And according to the high priest, in order to make people happy, the Holy Virgin was sent straight from heaven. The protagonist, who is still eating lunch, thinks that all his words are disgusting, because the more she listens to it, the more she boils with anger. But the girl realizes that if you think about it in detail, this case is ironic, because she is the ruler of the underworld who tried to kill God with her army, but eventually became a holy maiden and God's messenger. The girl realizes that if she told any of her soldiers about it, no one would even believe it. The protagonist suddenly looks at her hand and notices that the mark that is located there begins to throb again. And the girl also thinks about the fact that she wanted to kill these 3 Neo-Teasan primates. But as soon as she used her power, the pain immediately receded. She continues to stare hard at her hand and wonders, what is that nasty thing? Lennox is very surprised at such a question, and looking at the eyes, asks her if her kama is okay and if her wrists are sore. Also, Guy wonders, should he examine the girl? But the protagonist doesn't answer him anything, and just realizes that if you think about it in detail, it's not the dumb-faced emperor or the little saint who doesn't seem to notice the mark on her arm. But the girl also thinks about the fact that it is not so important, because first, she needs to think of a strategy for her behavior. While she is thinking, the priest asks her some questions. But the girl does not even listen to him. She decides that she needs to figure out what she's capable of first. She's been rewarded with a newfound strength by Ferdinand, which is what she cares about most right now. The priest asks the girl to listen to him at least a little. He emphasizes that the girl's countenance at one point became very distorted. He thinks that it is because she did not like the food and asks the girl about it. He also asks how she's feeling and if she has any pain. He says she shouldn't be embarrassed to ask him for help, because he'll do whatever he can to make her feel more comfortable in the world. The girl puts her hand on the table and thinks that this is very strange. She tells the emperor and the priest that she wants to understand something, because according to her, she used her divine power on them. But it seems that it did not quite work. The girl wonders why this is so. The priest is very surprised by such an act on the part of the Holy Virgin. Lennox finds an explanation for the Holy Virgin's power not working on him and the emperor, according to him. Because he is high priest, he has already learned the love of their God. But when the moment comes to explain why the power did not work on the emperor, Lennox thinks that if this man was not the emperor, he would have reprimanded him for sneering in the direction of the Holy Virgin, citing blasphemy. But he realizes that he cannot admit to the Holy Virgin that their emperor simply does not believe in God. Lennox finds himself in a quandary and does not know what to answer the girl. The emperor interrupts him from his thoughts and asks the Holy Virgin whether in the kingdom of God she has not been taught manners. His look makes it clear that the behavior of the Holy Virgin does not please the emperor very much. Ides looks straight at him and wonders, is the emperor angry that she used powers without his permission? But when asked about manners, the girl tells the temperature that they weren't taught that in heaven. While the girl was answering him, he came a little closer to her and said that he was sorry that they had not been taught manners. There was a touch of irony in his words. As he and the Holy Maiden came closer, they began to gaze at each other. Now the behavior of the emperor begins to irritate the protagonist. She realizes that he dares to impertinent heavenly messenger, and understands that the emperor is not a bastard, while in her thoughts the girl calls him a bastard. After she thought about all this, the emperor smilingly tells her that, in truth, he is not interested in manners or etiquette, because in his own words, he is tired of all this contrived politeness. The emperor also emphasizes that he also has a question for the Holy Virgin. Ides, who is watching him closely, is surprised by this and asks the emperor what question he wants to ask her, while she also wonders why he got off the subject so quickly. The emperor in turn decides to ask a question of interest to him, and asks the girl why she looks at him with such a strong passion. The protagonist is incredibly surprised by a question of this nature. The main character asks the emperor why he thought he was right in this situation. She tries to show that she looks at the emperor like everyone else with all her looks. The emperor looks directly at the protagonist and asks her if he is right now. The girl gets even more angry, despite the emperor laughs at his words that she looks at him with passion. Also, the girl thinks that she wants to strangle him because of his painfully familiar face. Suddenly, the protagonist starts to pull her hand right to the face and the emperor. But he sees this and grabs the girl's hand. He looks nonchalantly at her, and all the other people in the room are very surprised by this. The emperor, smiling slightly, asks Eads why she is holding her hands out to him. At the same time, the emperor compliments her and calls them graceful. Then someone tells the emperor that his hair is disheveled, and the Holy Virgin must have just wanted to fix it. At which point, the guy still holding the main character's hand fixes his hair with the help of her hand. Looking directly at the protagonist, the emperor says that it was very nice of her. Immediately, the emperor lets go of the girl's hand and puts his hand on her head. At this point, the protagonist is in complete bewilderment. Still keeping his hand on the protagonist's head, the emperor says that he thought the Holy Virgin wanted to swear at him, and he also emphasizes that he must have been wrong about the girl. The Holy Virgin, at this point, just doesn't understand what's going on. Lennox says that this could not be, because in heaven the gods do not know profanity. Also, he is very angry. Because of the emperor's behavior, he does not understand how the emperor dares to treat a saint like a small child. The priest also mentions that everything is just as he said, and the saint was indeed sent to them by the gods. Oh, the gods do not know about profanity, evil, and vice. So according to the priest, she will treat him with respect. The protagonist in turn is very surprised by the words of the priest, because she did not intend to treat with reverence to the emperor. She is a little annoyed by the whole situation. After the priest has made all his arguments, he asks the emperor to treat the Holy Virgin more respectfully. The emperor, with a nonchalant face, says that he does so anyway. The Holy Maiden has an even greater level of anger at this point. She seems to be flaming, and thinking about the fact that she won't show deference to some insects like them. Also, to the protagonist's surprise, the emperor says that there is no such thing in their worldview. Lennox tries to say something, but the emperor interrupts him and states that they are missing a lot by not allowing such a thing. Lennox, realizing that he can't argue with the emperor, tells the emperor that he thinks they should return to the main topic of conversation. The emperor says that they seem to be talking about divine powers. Lennox says that this is indeed so. He says that returning to the subject of their conversation, the powers of the Holy One allow man to know love and faith in God. When the priest says this, he looks really very happy. His happy face is being watched by the emperor and the Holy Virgin herself. But the priest also adds that this power only works on non-believers. The emperor doesn't understand how it works, and the Holy Virgin is as perplexed as the emperor. But the priest decides to reveal it to them. According to him, the ancient records of past high priests say that this power was given by God to attract new followers to his side. The girl who's sitting at the table now asks the priest if she understood him to mean that her power may not work on every person. The priest emphasizes that this is exactly so, and for the forces to work, a person must feel either hatred or disgust. Only in this case the forces will work, because they seem to cleanse the human soul from all the vices. The girl again becomes very angry. She thinks about the fact that the ability she got from Ferdinand has its own limitations. The girl touched her face and said her eyes hurt. But Lennox remembers that the girl never gave her name, so they'd know what to call her. And because the girl still hasn't given her name, Lennox asks her if she has a name at all. The girl doesn't answer the priest, and just thinks about his question. She recalls that centuries ago in the underworld, she was given the name Ides, which means strongest, a name that suited the girl perfectly, because it described her nature. But though she was given a name in the underworld, no one has ever called her by her name during her tenure, which is why she now finds it difficult to answer the question. She also thinks that she may have been born with a different name. But the memory of those days has long since been erased from her memories, There is nothing left in her but hatred for the god of war, Ferdinand. She realizes that it's been a long time, and she still never once thought about her real name because all this time the girl lived only in the name of revenge. Apparently, the girl began to humanize if she began to think about it. The thought that she has lived so long with thoughts of the place that she has forgotten why she wants to take revenge on him, and what is Ferdinand's fault, also enters her head, which causes a storm of hatred in her heart. She also wonders what will happen to her when she is able to finish off Ferdinand. But she has no answers to these questions, because she has been too much consumed by hatred and the desire for revenge against Ferdinand. At this time, the emperor, who was thinking of a name for the girl, decided that she would be called Sally. He smiles. Despite smiling directly at the holy maiden, asks her if she likes the name. The protagonist clutches her chest because she has a strange feeling. She can't understand what it is, but she looks completely confused. We again see a memory of a girl. In this memory, she is in a beautiful garden, in a gorgeous white dress. She looks happy there, and next to her, there is Ferdinand, who calls her Sally. Suddenly, we move back to the girl and realize that she is wondering why it hurts her so much to hear that name. The protagonist can't understand herself. She still doesn't answer anything to the emperor, who along with Lennox is waiting for the girl to answer. She just wonders why she gets this strange feeling, as if that name is her real name. Because of all the feelings that the girl had experienced during this short period, tears began to show in her eyes, and she still remains silent and stares at one point, because of being in her own thoughts and feelings. The emperor himself sees it all. At first, the girl's tears make him a little stunned, but after that he looks directly into her eyes and asks why she is crying, where she raises her head a little with the same angry face as usual and looks at the emperor. The gaze of the Holy Virgin, still dominated by demonic feelings, collides with that of the emperor. While Lennox watches on excitedly, we realize that this collision is happening just seconds before Armageddon. The protagonist clenches her hand into a fist, and getting very angry because a mortal dares to make fun of her feelings, she gets up from her seat and starts heading straight for the emperor. But just before approaching him suddenly, her hand clenches, and instead of hitting the emperor, she begins to embrace him. Such an unexpected turn of events surprised Lennox, but even more surprised by the girl herself, whose intentions were clear, but the action showed a completely different outcome of events. The emperor and the protagonist embrace, watched by the two maids who literally smile at such a sight. And so beautiful couple. The emperor looks tenderly at the protagonist and notices that now he understands how they in heaven express their feelings. The girl again changes her face and becomes even more angry. She does not understand what the emperor is saying and answers him that she does not know how they do it in heaven. Emperor, still gently embracing the girl, decided to ask her why the name he came up with for her made the girl cry, as the girl still does not answer him anything. He asks her, "Does the Holy Virgin herself so much desire for consolation?" At this, the emperor smiles, and the girl suddenly blushes at his words. It is not particularly peculiar to her. The girl finally returns to her normal state. She once again gets angry and asks the emperor if he really thinks she wants to do just that. She emphasizes that their god is to blame for everything that happens. The emperor sneers a little at the words of the girl. He says that he despises their god, but since he gave him such a gift, the emperor is ready to reconsider his attitude towards him. At this time, he and the holy maiden look into each other's eyes, while the priest who is watching this is very much surprised by his words. A priest intervenes in their conversation and starts begging the emperor to let the holy maiden go. The priest looks like he's about to cry. Suddenly, another lady enters the emperor's room. She addresses His Highness and informs him that my Lady Verdi wishes to see him at once. The priest is very surprised at this statement, and looking at the subject, asks if Milady should have gone to the training. But according to the subject, the girl left in the middle of the training, and said that she had something urgent to discuss with His Highness. The priest is very worried, and because of this, he thinks what he should do. Because in his opinion my lady must not see it, because otherwise she will be angry, he decides to tell the subject that His Majesty is very busy, and he will come to my Lady Verdi a little later. Well, suddenly in the same room enters and my Lady Verdi herself, we learn that she is a candidate for the role of the Holy Virgin of the people of Verdi Mortica, and at the same time an unusually beautiful lady. The priest is very much surprised that my lady herself has come here, but the girl who has noticed what is going on here is incredibly surprised and upset by what she sees. She looks at the unperturbed emperor who is still embracing the holy maiden, and asks him what kind of obscenity is going on. But the main characters look at the girl as if they don't care about her opinion and words. The priest tries somehow to get out of the situation. He tries to convince my Lady Verdi that the Holy Virgin gives their emperor a blessing. But apparently his words do not really affect the girl, and she still looks very sad. She is surprised that the Holy Virgin gives the blessing in such a lewd way, and continues to watch the emperor and the protagonist, who at the same moment pushes the emperor and asks him to let her go, calling him a stickler. The priest again tries to justify the holy maiden and the emperor, and says it was a simple and unfortunate accident. But my Lady Verdi doubts his words even more. Verdi's milady casts her gaze on the whole environment around her, as well as on the protagonist, and asks, why does the Holy Virgin give a blessing in such an unfavorable place? Lennox thinks that Mrs. Verdi's doubts are not groundless at all. According to Lennox himself, Mrs. Verdi is recognized by the imperial family and the people as a holy virgin. She graduated with honors from a theological seminary and performs various charitable works. Dear friends, and if you do not know what a theological seminary is, it is an educational institution of the Orthodox Church, providing higher spiritual education for ministry in the form of pastoral, teaching, and scientific and theological activities. She became a favorite of the people, and also the only saint. However, Mrs. Verdi not so long ago went on a pilgrimage throughout the empire. Also, for those who do not know, pilgrimage is the walking of the faithful to holy places to worship. This form of communication with God was known in ancient times. It is based on the belief that prayer is most effective in holy places. However, my Lady Verdi could not have expected that on her return, she would meet the real Holy Virgin, who had been sent to the empire by God himself. My Lady Verdi comes closer to the second saint, and then the emperor himself takes a step towards the girl and says that there was a prophecy that the Holy Virgin would descend on their lands. He informs my Lady Verdi that it has finally happened, and the girl descended from heaven to their land this morning in the divine garden. Apparently, the emperor is now describing how Ides descended to earth. The first Holy Virgin heard the emperor's words immediately falls on her knees in front of him. She starts crying and asking the emperor what will happen to her now. It becomes clear that the girl did not care at all that the emperor embraced Ides, and she cares more about her fate. The emperor tries to say something to the girl, but she interrupts him and asks if they need her further. And she also emphasizes that she has worked hard for the prosperity of their empire. According to the girl, she wanted to support the empire with the emperor. She seems very concerned that there is another Holy Virgin in their empire who may take the place that previously belonged to Milady Verdi. The emperor tells the girl that he has said no such thing and orders her to get back up off her knees. The girl kneels down and says that since God has sent them a holy maiden, the emperor will allow her to teach the holy maiden the works of the outside world, and the emperor agrees. The two recognized holy virgins stand before each other, and then Sally says that she does not agree to have Verdi teach her the works of the outside world. My Lady Verdi is very upset that the Holy Virgin has resisted teaching under her tutelage. Seeing that the Sally is opposed to the training, the emperor asks her if she understands that he will decide the matter himself, watched by my Lady Verdi and the priest, who says that this is very cruel of the emperor. My Lady Verdi at this time looks at the Sally, and seeing her emerald red eyes thinks that something is obviously wrong with this holy maiden. Verdi is thinking about a new saint. Looking at Sally in more detail, she is surprised that the girl is the new Holy Virgin, who was supposedly sent by God. My Lady Verdi finds this very hard to believe. She looks directly at the face and thinks that it just cannot be, because the girl looking into her eyes feels like demonic powers trying to drag her to the bottom of the underworld. She feels as if she's falling completely under the power of the new holy maiden, and apparently my Lady Believe feels some danger to her from Sailey. The girl steps forward, and apologizing for being rude, decides to ask Sailey if she is really a holy maiden. It becomes even more obvious that the old holy maiden can't believe that Sailey has replaced her. Sailey, in turn, is a little surprised at such a question from the old holy maid, and arrogantly asks her, "Isn't it obvious that she is truly a holy maid?" But my Lady Verdi takes another step, and gets even closer to the Sailor. The girl looks straight into the protagonist's eyes. She claims the girl is no saint. The maids and the priest, Lennox, who are still in the same room, are very much surprised at my Lady Verdi's words. Lennox is even left speechless and cannot say anything. My Lady Verdi continues her monologue. She says that this look and haughty appearance of the seal obviously cannot match the image of the Holy Virgin. When she says this, Verdi holds in her hands a large cross with a blue jewel in the middle. She stretches out her arms with a cross and tells the Sailey not to come close to her, with Verdi seeming to start praying and asking the great god Ferdinand to lend her his power. The rest of the people in the room are watching the whole thing like a circus. All the people are speechless, and even the emperor himself is just watching what will happen next. Of all those present, only Lennox is outraged by my Lady Verdi's words. He is incensed that she is accusing the Holy Maiden of being a liar, and asks Verdi what she is even talking about. The Holy Virgin, turning to Lennox, emphasizes that she saw this girl in her dream. When Verdi tells her about it, she trembles with fear, but decides to emphasize that the dream was truly a nightmare. According to Verdi's stories, in this dream the whole kingdom was dark, and in the palace sat this girl with a devilish grin on her face. And we can notice that the protagonist has found her true form in the girl's dream, and she now has the usual horns. Lennox can't believe Lady Verdi's words. He says that with all due respect to her, but he doesn't believe her words because he saw the Holy Virgin appear to them, and according to him it was a gift from God, no other way. Lady Verdi is very indignant that Lennox does not believe her words, and a little angry. She turns to him and asks if she has understood correctly that Lennox wants to say that she is lying. Lennox again becomes worried, because he does not want to offend my Lady Verdi, and says that he does not want to say that. My Lady Verdi addresses the Emperor and says that to avoid the disaster that is coming to the Empire, the Emperor will have to lock this impostor in a dungeon, or else, according to Verdi, something irreparable will happen. The protagonist also guesses that Verdi is partly right, but things are a little different than she imagines. Suddenly, the protagonist starts looking at her hand. She once again becomes ill, and the girl cannot understand why it happens to her again, because she has already done some good deeds, having bewitched 3 fools. While the protagonist remembers how those 3 visitors to the Emperor's palace fell in love with her and swore to glorify her name forever, she thinks they're just nasty. The protagonist begins to compare her ability to cholera because she can't even breathe easy, as she immediately begins to feel bad, because she doesn't do anything good. She also thinks about the fact that she was forbidden to swear. She thinks that she really wants to swear. This feeling overcomes her, but unfortunately she cannot do it. Then the girl decides that she needs to do something good. Otherwise, this feeling will not disappear. Lennox, still arguing with my Lady Verdi, claims to have seen with his own eyes how the protagonist came out of the divine pond. But my Lady Verdi does not believe it, and claims that it is all a hoax, because in her opinion, a demon of high rank could create such an illusion. Seeing Lennox and Verdi's first holy maiden begin to quarrel with each other, and the Emperor immediately orders the wallpaper to shut up immediately. Apparently, he's had enough of the chaos going on around him. Finally, Lennox notices that the Holy Virgin is not feeling very well. On his face, you can see the feelings of fear, and he immediately decided to approach the protagonist to ask how she feels. The girl gets annoyed because Lennox asks her how she's feeling every time. She says, "Stop sitting around and fighting over nothing." Then suddenly, the protagonist grabs the priest by his clothes and starts yelling to him that she wants to do good deeds. Now, it is obvious that the girl wants to do some good deeds in order for her strange feelings to disappear, and she comes to normal. The protagonist so strongly shook the priest that from his head even fell headdress. My Lady Verdi, who sees all this, is in real shock, because she did not expect such a sharp turn of events and so rude actions on the part of the girl. But Lennox, who's still holding her breasts, looks at her and says he knew it. He says she's a holy maiden and there's no other way around it. Lennox points My Lady Verdi out to the protagonist and asks only to look at her, at which time My Lady Verdi looks a little downcast, for no one believes her. But Lennox again begins to fiercely defend the protagonist and asks My Lady Verdi what demon in his right mind would want to do good deeds. He also emphasizes that the protagonist wants to give their people overwhelming love and faith in their common god, Ferdinand. Lennox keeps pushing us Holy Maiden to change her mind about the main character. He asks her if she still thinks that Sally might be a demoness. Milady Verdi is very surprised by Lennox's words, but her attention fell on his words that the protagonist will give all-consuming love. Obviously, such wording very much embarrasses the Holy Maiden. At this point, the Emperor himself intervenes in their conversation, emphasizing that he has heard what My Lady Verdi wanted him to say, and emphasizing that to reassure her, they will have to look at the powers of the Holy Virgin of Saley. My Lady Verdi agrees with the Emperor's words, but the Emperor also tells the girl that until they see the powers of the new Holy Virgin in action, Verdi will not spread the bad news of her alleged dream. Lennox is still with Saley. He sees that she is in a rather slumped state and asks her if she is okay. But My Lady Verdi at this time is just watching Saley. She thinks about feeling some strange feeling and realizes that the protagonist has no divine powers, for she feels nothing holy from her lich. And also My Lady Verdi is very much annoyed by the fact that the Emperor himself, very kindly to this demoness, the girl becomes furious about it. In Verdi's eyes, the Emperor's benevolence towards Saley looks like nothing more than a common manipulation on the part of the demoness, and a certain feeling of amorousness between the two of them. Verdi decides that she will expose the protagonist and show everyone her true face, after which the Emperor and Milady leave the room they were in. My Lady Verdi, thinking that only she can be by His Highness's side, then My Lady Verdi tells the audience that on her way to the capital, she learned terrible news. According to her, she heard the news that there is a suffering people. According to the girl, there is a village that is tormented by a certain demon, and which does not let people live normally. The girl says that since the protagonist is really a real saint maiden, let her deal with this evil creature and help the people who live there. Lennox begins to dissuade all present from this adventure. According to him, to do so cannot, because the Holy Virgin cannot fight evil, and she only instructs on the path of truth, and nothing more. But the protagonist is not afraid of the ordeal. She realizes that if she saves this village, it can be a good deed, and immediately the girl calms Lennox and asks Verdi, "Where is this village?" The protagonist looks very determined, and she declares that she is going there to help all the people who are being tormented by that very scary creature. Lennox tries to say something, but looking at the protagonist, in his eyes her words sounded like self-sacrifice. He heard her say that as if the protagonist had said that no matter how bad it was for her, people were suffering more from the hell spawn, and so she supposedly intended to save them. But that was just Lennox's distorted vision, and the girl didn't really say that. Because of all this, Lennox immediately falls on his knees in front of the main character and says that she is very kind and selfless. According to him, he will go with her even to the depths of the underworld. These words make us realize that Lennox will go with the girl to save the village from the demon. The priest immediately orders the maids to prepare a carriage for them to go to the village, and the maids answer him that they will do his bidding, while the protagonist is a little surprised that everything happens so quickly. Lennox thinks that whatever lies ahead for the Holy Maiden, he swears that he will always be on the girl's side and will never turn his back on her. After having these thoughts, Lennox immediately declares loudly that they are going to the village, and together with the Holy Maiden, they will save all who live there. Dear friends, and if you want to see the continuation of this story, and to understand whether the Holy Virgin began all the same relationship with the Emperor. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Do not forget to click on the like button under the video. And when under this video will gain 5,000 likes or 40,000 views, I will definitely make for you the second part.